Hello, my friends. This is Deepak Chopra, and it's a great privilege for me to speak to a storyteller today, Sundar Nathan. I met him at an airport recently, and we had a conversation. And I'm very excited to talk to him about his latest venture, which is called the Naraka Files. So, Sundar, give me a history about how you came to do this project, the Naraka Files.
Deepak, I spent many years in Silicon Valley and been working as a tech marketer, but I've always had a deep passion for mythology, starting from my grandmother and my mom telling me stories from the Indian epics. And I resolved to write something that would actually share our heritage, the Eastern heritage, the Indian heritage, combine it with a fantasy, revisionist, supernatural story with interesting characters. And so I really started the research, and it became, larger and larger as it went. And it turned into a sort of an epic story. And it's been a fantastic journey doing the research and coming up with the story.
So I just saw the cover of your epic story. Could you show it to our audience right now? Can we
Sure.
see it?
Yeah. So this is the cover.
Okay, so of course I know what the cover means, but explain this particular cover to our audience because they're not familiar with this particular story. So go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things, Dr. Chopra, is I've created mythical creatures. So actually in this cover on the left, as you can see, there's a lion-like creature with wings, and there's a battle going on. And in fact, my protagonist is derived from the Ramayana, and he's Ravan, the person that goes on to become the demon king. And he's the antagonist in the ancient epic, but I decided to switch sides a little bit. So he's sent into the jungle for a trial of 7 days, and he encounters this mythical creature. Unfortunately, he's forced to battle and kill it, but he rescues its baby, and that's what you see on the right here. He tenderly carries the baby away, and the baby imprints on him, and that's becomes his close friend and eventually his vahana, or his vehicle.
The baby becomes his equal.
Yes.
So he befriends the demon's child, and the child grows up to be similar to Ravan, but this time Ravan is the protagonist. He's not the enemy. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, one of the interesting things is the world we live in now is we tend to look at those that are different from us, possibly with judgment, and we may paint them as evil or wrong. And what I've tried to do here is start with a teenage Ravan. It's much later he becomes the demon king and a very evil person. But what I've tried to do is start with the notion of a teenager, and nobody's born evil. So we make a set of decisions along our lives to move towards the light or move towards darkness. And so we all do. And so here what I've tried to portray is that Ravan starts off, as a good person and a very devout worshiper of Lord Shiva, and he's also a great musician and a great warrior.
So the non-dual traditions, wisdom traditions, do in fact say that good and evil are opposites of a deeper reality, and that deeper reality, of course, is infinite. So on the one side, you have what we call evolution. On the other side, we have entropy, destruction, and you can kind of phrase that in many ways. The good is anything that supports truth, goodness, beauty, harmony, love, compassion, joy, equanimity, and ultimately transcendence. And evil, it's very interesting. As you were just speaking, I saw this book on my desk, Aghora, and the
Mhm.
left hand of God. So,
Yes,
both
powerful book.
yeah. And of course, Nisargadatta Maharaj in one of his lectures said something very beautiful. He said, the sinner and the saint are merely exchanging notes. The saint has a
Mm.
past, the sinner has a future. And
Mm.
when you transcend to your true self, these categories actually become irrelevant. Would you agree with that?
I think so. I really believe that each and every one of us has great capacity for goodness, but also great capacity for violence and evil. And so, the question is, as you mentioned, Dr. Chopra, is do we choose to transcend, move towards enlightenment through the various approaches that we talk about, yoga, meditation, or do we move towards making the decisions, the small decisions every day that move us towards darkness? But I do agree that, you know, you've said it so many times, is with Rumi's quote, beyond ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And, I started reading some of your books and being inspired about 25 years ago. So I do agree that the notion of good and evil disappear at some point, and we try to integrate and come to a balance.
Are you a scholar of Sanskrit? Do you read Sanskrit? Or how did you put these in English? What is your basic native language?
So my native language is Tamil, which is a Southern Indian language spoken by about 80 million people worldwide. But when I was about 6 months old, my family moved to Lucknow in the north, and I spoke Hindi. So the first actually language I learned was Hindi, which is written in a script called Devanagari, or as you know, the language of the script of the gods. It literally translates to that. And Sanskrit has been something that my mom invited a teacher to our house when I was 9, and had us start memorizing some of the Sanskrit, shlokas and couplets from the various ancient texts. And so, but at that time, I didn't have the patience to sit still. And after a few months, I begged her to not invite that teacher again. But I picked it up about 5 years ago again. I actually attended Sanskrit classes at the University of Texas at Austin, which is my alma mater, and I had great teachers there, mentors. But yes, I would say I'm a student of Sanskrit because it's a universe, it's,
So
but I love the language. Yeah.
the word Naraka means hell, doesn't it? Or the domain of existence that we associate with evil and torture, right?
Yes, very much so. But, in the Indian cosmology or the Hindu cosmology, there's a notion of planes of higher vibration, realms of higher vibration. We call them,
Lokas.
Bhuvar Loka, Mahaloka, Janaloka, and so on, till Satyaloka, the land of truth. And then there are the lower vibration regions, one of which is actually Padala or Naraka. And so beings live, according to the mythology and the ancient thinking, at all these levels, And so, but what I've tried to do is actually take those 14 worlds and put them in one world in my novel, and as continents. So what you see behind me, for example, is a map of Naraka as a continent, and it's fictional. But what I've tried to do is bring scientific realism into this story. So instead of labeling an area or a realm as evil, or a place where people go to suffer and be tortured, it's really just another location, and it has 5 civilizations that I've built that live there. And one of them is the Asuras, or the in the ancient thinking, the Asuras are the demons. But what if they really aren't? What if they possess other qualities?
So now this novel that you've written, and you say it's with the publisher, it's not yet with the bookstores, is it? Is it in the bookstores, the novel yet?
No, No, not yet. It launches on December 2nd, and it's
And
available for pre-order on Amazon right now.
okay.
It's,
Are,
it's called, yeah, go ahead.
are you self-publishing this, or do you have another publisher?
I am self-publishing, and
Hmm.
I'm also looking for traditional publishers. But what I wanted to do was, we live in an age where we can all reach audiences through various channels. Whether it's YouTube or whether it's Instagram or various channels are available for us to connect with audiences. Self-publishing is an interesting model because it allows us to have direct connections uh, with our clients and with the readers, and get direct feedback as well. So I thought
So,
I'd try it.
no, it's good. This map looks like a bit of the Indian subcontinent. This particular map, and you say there are 14 lokas in this Naraka files.
Yes. So in my series, which I'm actually have, this is book one of a series of five that I've already started book two. But yes, so there are 14 essentially continents, of which Bhuloka or Earth is basically a continent, and Swarga, or what's described as the land of the deities, the devas, is another continent. So uh, the notion is that Naraka has five civilizations, including the spellcasters, the sailors, the half humanoid, half snakes, the Nagas, also the half humanoid, half horses, and then finally a civilization that's very deeply connected to nature. And so these are, and then in Swarga, there's a civilization called the Devas. So I've tried to incorporate the worlds mentioned in the cosmology of the ancients into a scientifically realistic environment.
So this book, this present novel, includes Swarga as well, as part of
Yes.
your uh, rendition. So let me ask you one thing. Right now there is a lot of controversy about the nature of the universe, and one physicalist
Mhm.
rendition of that version is and it's physicalist, based on string theory and multiverse theories, that there could be infinite universes, physical universes. But of course, if we go to our Indian cosmology, then these lokas, or these universes, or these domains of existence, are actually projections of an infinite consciousness. In the Yoga Vishishta, you read infinite universes come and go in the vast expanse of consciousness, like motes of dust dancing in a
Mm.
beam of light. That's a beautiful image. But while we think of these as locations in space-time, and we think of our own planet as a theater of space-time causality, it's actually a frequency domain of consciousness, one particular. And there could be infinite of these, and therefore infinite fictional characters in these infinite dreamscapes. And you and I are part of that fictional character that is in a collective dreamscape where we are sharing the same frequency of consciousness. And that earth, or bhuloka, you called it. Yeah.
Bhuloka, just, Earth,
And
so to
the
speak.
Buddhists frequently, and I've heard this expression that this is also karma bhumi. This is where we come to liberate ourselves from karma, and we keep recycling till we find out that it was all a dream anyway, that this was lila, the play of consciousness, and it was a result of what we call maya, the veil of ignorance. And it is the goddess Maya that creates this illusion. And then Lila is the plane, this illusion. And once upon a time, somebody told me, and because I think you know more in this domain than I do, that the word myth is related to the word mata, or matrika, or mother.
Mm.
So myth is the womb of creation. And the word myth is also related to the word matter, or music, or meter, or measurement, or anything that is measurable. Since we cannot experience or measure the finite, we kind of, and the infinite, we kind of symbolically represent it as myth. And so myth is actually what is projecting as our everyday reality. And that while we think we are in a physical world, it's actually the projection of our collective myth. And once we pierce this veil, we realize that everything we experience is a magical lie. You know, our perceptions give us a very narrow band of experience out of an infinite range of possible experiences. Our five senses are basically giving us less than 0.1% of what exists there. And what they're delivering is a lie anyway. My senses tell me the earth is flat. Nobody believes that anymore. My senses tell me that the ground I'm sitting on is stationary and it's spinning at dizzying speeds, hurtling through space at thousands of miles an hour. My senses tell me that your body is solid and that's who you are. But your body is proportionately as void as intergalactic space. And if I could see it, I would see a huge emptiness with a few scattered dots and spots and some random electrical discharges, which in turn are also manifestations of empty space. So, you know, Tagore had this famous poem where he said, in this playhouse of infinite forms, I caught sight of the formless, and then my life was blessed. If our essential state is without form, which is our fundamental state, and the vrittis or the shaktis are the vibrations of the formless, and if we can transcend to that domain of the formless, and then we should be able to theoretically morph into different appearances, demons, asuras, divine entities, deities, devatas, dakinis, goddesses. These are all our own projection, including the human form. And that to me is very exciting because right now, as I look at the current science, 99.9% of our genetic information is microbial, and you can change that through diet. The 0.1% of your genetic information is human, only 25,000 genes for 2 million plus extra bacterial genes, only 25,000 genes are human. And I was thinking, what are genes? And I was thinking they're symbols of consciousness that genes differentiate, you know, into the cells of the body, the appearance of the body. And the appearance of the body is a collection of vrittis, which are mental fluctuations, which in turn are fluctuations of an infinite consciousness. So all these infinite verses are, in a way, digital printouts, 4D or even multidimensional, dynamic printouts of a digital workshop in the infinite mind. And that our current technology is actually giving us a clue to the nature of the universe, whether it's this Zoom we are doing, or the metaverses that are being created, or the NFTs that are appearing, or the metahuman adventures. I'm calling these metahuman adventures in the metaverse. And that's part of what I'm looking at now. So this is very helpful. How long is the novel that you've written?
So it's a little over 500 pages. And one of the things that really struck me in what you just said is the idea of the infinite consciousness projecting itself to create this material world, which we regard as real. And in the novel itself, in fact, many of the characters, Rawan, for example, the protagonist, meditates, and his close Naga friend Vasuki does asanas and Surya Namaskar, and she also meditates. And the notion that you shared, which is our bodies are 99% microbial DNA, and only 0.1, you know, small amount is human DNA. But we attach so much importance to this material body, and you know, our ego tells us to maintain this body and survive at any cost. But in fact, the points you mentioned, which are the notion that you know, proportionately, our bodies is as really spacious as intergalactic space. and modern science, as you mentioned in Metahuman and other books as well, the notion of entanglement, for example, or the notion of multiverses, the notion of the infinite consciousness, our collective infinite consciousness, giving rise to these multiverses, to these metaverses, and it's we're creating this moment to moment to moment as we go.
And that's what the purpose of existence is: the play, the lila, right? The joy that comes from being part of the creative intelligence, being connected to the source of all intelligence is joy. And we've kind of lost it in our society right now, where teen suicide has become the second most common cause of death, where there's war, terrorism. I mean, we are definitely projecting right now a frequency domain of consciousness that could easily be called Naraka. And if we don't wake up to our own projections, we are headed for extinction of this particular bhumi anyway, and its life forms. So I think bringing to light these ideas is very useful if you want to favor evolution instead of destruction. Now, this cover of the book is stunning. Can you show it again for a moment? If we can show the cover. Do you have more artwork in the book or the novel, or it's just the cover?
No, I do. So I'll share the cover itself. And what we're building out is a whole series of art that, including, in fact, I have a slideshow that, if you have a moment, I could share with you.
Please do. I'd like to see the slideshow. Can you do it right now?
Yeah, I can do that. Let me stop.
Do that.
Yeah.
And who's the artist? Who is your artist?
So my artists actually are two wonderful brothers, brilliant, Harsh and Raj. They're actually grandchildren of the artists who created the Amar Chitra Katha, graphic novels and comics, which I grew up reading in India. And so they bring a unique genius to this, and they're able to effectively, really talk about visually how can we bring this to bear. And so, yeah, there's a whole series of,
Yeah, do they live in India or do they live here in the United States, the artists?
No, they are in Pondicherry right now. But one of the things that I really tried to do through the novel Prince of Naraka is share visuals, and we have maps as well that we've created. As you see, we're creating physical maps, and there's a whole sort of series of, let me go ahead and share the presentation here. Are you able to see my screen?
I can see the map behind you, nothing else.
The map behind me, okay. So let me go ahead and play that that specific slideshow,
please,
which would be, yeah. So, and share my screen in a second here. So we see here the journey of Ravan is that he starts off in a trial of 7 days in a forest in the jungle, and he's supposed to go in there and he encounters these mythical creatures. There's a mine associated where the Devas have actually enslaved some of the people on Naraka. So here you see some of the artwork that we've been working on, where in fact the Devas are chasing Ravan, and he's hiding behind this boulder. We're going to put in some more light, and this is in progress. Here are some of here's an example of a mythical creature that they encounter, the Kirti Mukha, or the one with the great dangerous jaws, so to speak, or the face. And then I started off as an example of what I started off with, which is my sketches of the map itself. And it's an example, and we morphed that into something. This is early stage, and finally we get to what you're seeing here, which is the map of the political map of Naraka with the different civilizations. You have Asurapura and Vidyadharapura, the Kinnaras, who are half humanoid, half horse, the Nagas, who are half humanoid, half snake. And these are all characters from, you know, our ancient texts, the Ramayana, etc. And, you know, what I tried to do was do a lot of research on, you know, come up with characters, come up with scenarios, ornaments, art, architecture, derived from various parts of India, mythical creatures, and so on. So that's been part of the journey, creating a whole timeline around the book. And, you know, this is my website, sundarnathan.com, where you can go and get more information about this. But these are, you know, some of the areas that, you know, we've been trying to get into.
That's very wonderful. So, you know, we have a project right now. I'm a co-founder of a company that is called Seva Love. And Seva Love, along with my co-founder Punacha Machaya, who's also the CEO of our nonprofit foundation, we are creating some NFTs around mythical themes. If you're open to it, we can actually help you popularize this art and your book, and you know, bring some income as well to you. But the more important thing is to actually create a series, and something we could do with you if you wanted, what we're calling Metahuman Adventures in the Metaverse. If you're open to that, I'll connect you with our CEO as well.
Oh, that would be fantastic. I think, you know, as a former technologist, NFTs, non-fungible tokens, are so interesting because they allow the creativity, the visual creativity of so many artists and creators to come forth. And I'd love to have these characters be represented as NFTs. You know, the goal would really be to, again, popularize the lessons from the ancient epics through these characters and the visual representation of these through NFTs. That would be fantastic. Thank you for extending me that opportunity.
The idea, of course, is to validate the ancient saying that consciousness is a field of infinite possibilities, infinite creativity, and infinite manifestations. And if we can actually empower people to think of themselves, that their internal reference point is pure consciousness, which is infinite, formless, irreducible, fundamental, and then they can participate in the creation of their own reality and actually craft their own adventures. That's why we're calling it Metahuman Adventures in the Metaverse. So I'll connect you to our CEO. This has been a very wonderful conversation. More to come as your book comes out publicly on Amazon, elsewhere. Be happy to support it, but also be happy to take this art and your ideas and create some adventures in the metaverse. If you think that's a good idea, let's go for it.
I'd love to. And I think Metahuman Adventures in the Metaverse could be a great vehicle to, you know, introduce concepts such as yoga, meditation, mindfulness, to help us all evolve. As you said, we live in a world where war, violence, judgment, anger seem to predominate over the wonderful human qualities that we all have as potential inside of us. So Prince of Naraka is an expression of that. My own curiosity and awe, you mentioned, one of the concepts that you mentioned was joy. And this book has been it's been one of the most difficult things I've done in my life, for sure, but it's been a source of great joy, inner joy, and you know, follow your bliss. So as Joseph Campbell and you know, you've pointed out many times. So I've tried to do that.
Yeah, I think Metahuman Adventures in the Metaverse could help people realize that ultimately we are the universe, Aham Brahmasmi. And, you know, the various 8 limbs of yoga, starting with yamas and niyamas and yogasana and pranayam and pratyahara and dharana, dhyan, samadhi, are gateways to infinite possibilities. And even my book, 7 Spiritual Laws, was based on the idea that nature has creative intelligence. And if we can go to the source of all experience, which is pure consciousness, then we have the capacity to co-create the adventure we want in the metaverse. So thank you very much for this conversation.